For those who don't know me, my name is Vincina. The reason I am here today is because I wanted to tell my story. Not my entire life story, of course, in one go, but I feel like I have such a story and I want to share it. So here we go. The story I'm going to start off with, I'm sorry about the huffing and puffing, y'all, okay? I'm just trying to get emotionally prepared to tell this story. I lost my firstborn son. He died June 9th, and today's like July 28th or 27th, something like that. I don't even know the date. I never know the date. But he passed away, and it hurts a lot. But I want to share with you how God got me through it. And I'm kind of tired of telling this story. Like, everybody's calling me, what happened? What happened? And it's like, I'm telling this story because it's truly a testimony, but I don't want to keep telling it to individuals. So I'm going to revert everybody back to this video. But hopefully, this story helps somebody because I just feel like the things that have happened since he passed away and before he passed away has really helped me. So, Jamar was my firstborn son. When he passed away, he was 21 and a half years old. And when he was born, I just really wanted a baby. I wanted to be loved. At that time, for a very short period of my childhood, I became a troubled teen. And I just felt like I wanted somebody to love me. I know some people have all these stories about how they lose their V card, but mine was solely to have a baby. I met this guy. We became really close. He became one of my best friends. And one day I asked him if he wanted to have a baby. Mind you, at the time I was like 16. So while it was naive, I didn't know any better. Um, Later, I had the baby, and I made a choice when I saw that baby's beautiful face and that beautiful smile that I was going to live right for him. So at that time, I was a big, big, big time. I don't know if you can say these words online, so I'm going to be careful of what I said, but I was a chain smoker of grass. We'll say green grass because I don't know what else to call it. Um, but I smoked a lot, and I really wanted to just be a great example for him. Shortly after I got saved, now from the time that I had him until now, there's been a lot of challenges that I'm not going to quite go into today, but at some point I will. So, one of the things that happened, um, I will mention, is I was very, um, I was very depressed. I was, I want to say I was like extremely depressed. When my son was born, I wanted the best for him. And because I was still a minor, it gave me some challenges because I was 17 when I had him. Anyway, um, let me think. Okay. So I had him, and then he grew up. He grew up to be super smart, super handsome. He loved his mom. And I think when he was born, that was what initiated my sense or my desire to change. Because I looked at his face, and the way he looked at me, it was like I knew that little boy loved me with everything. And he grew up, and I felt like I didn't always provide for him the best, but I did provide him a good life. I wanted to do more. What parent doesn't? I was in college while I was raising him. I was raising my two brothers with him. And, I had to kind of grow up fast. I I bought this house in Lakeland and I said, you know, I didn't want to live there. So we ended up moving to back where I'm from. So we moved to Hillsborough County. We moved to Plant City. And he was doing good in Plant City for a while. He started smoking and he started rapping. I bring that up for a reason. But he started rapping and smoking, and our relationship it became a little strained because he no longer wanted to hang out with mom. He no longer wanted to do anything with me. He used to go everywhere with me, theme parks, whatever. He became really secluded and he was always in his room. And for me as a mother, I'm thinking, okay, he's just being a teenager. You know, I'm not thinking anything odd about him always being in his room. Recently, before he passed away, maybe around, I don't know, November, right before his birthday of 2025, I realized my son was bipolar. It just dawned on me, and I was like, wait a minute, why, as a therapist, I didn't notice my child was bipolar? And even though I don't practice mental health therapy, I did for a short period of time, I still felt guilty for not noticing. So shortly after, I gave him medicine and he started taking bipolar depression pills, and it worked out really well. Like he started being motivated. He was able to focus a little bit better. Not really focus, he still had an issue with focus, but focus on like overall goals. He was able to be in a better mood. And for a short period of time, I felt like I got my son back. In December, he lost a baby, and I watched my son deal with a heartache that I could see in his face, but he wasn't really saying anything. I'm trying not to cry. Um, he didn't say like too much, but he did tell me how bad it hurt. He said it hurts bad. He really wanted that baby. And I knew he wanted a baby because he had been telling me since he was like 16 how much he wanted a child. I told him, I don't want grandkids because this world is so evil. And the Bible says, woe to those who have babies in this time. So I didn't want a grandbaby. So I wasn't excited about it. But I would have loved the baby anyhow. So when he told me that he was having a baby, I was upset because I found out he told his dad first. So I called his dad and I'm like, how are you going to tell your dad before me? And so he was like, because you said that you weren't going to babysit. I was trying my best to encourage him not to have a baby. I'm like, I'm not babysitting. Don't call me. I'm not giving you no money for no diapers. I'm too young to be a grandmother. I mean, I would tell him all that stuff. He had the baby. Sorry, he didn't have the baby. I would tell him all that stuff. And the girl lost the baby on Christmas. So now my son is grieving. So he lost the baby, or I should say she lost the baby. And that devastated my son. So he decided he wanted to make a change. And he started just working super hard and making me very, very proud. I mean, he was doing everything. Like, it was like I really got my son back. The son that he had been up until those couple of years where he was just really, really depressed. Anyway, so he moved away with my family in West Palm Beach. And he was working and trying his hardest to just be responsible, dependable, reliable, but not for me, but for himself. And that's what I wanted for him because he was always loving and focusing on everybody else. I told him I really wanted him to do this for himself. And so he did. He did. And when when he was in West Palm Beach, he called me and said, I really want to come back home. And I was kind of opposed to it because I was like, no, you're doing so good. Why would you want to come back home? He said he believed he learned the lesson that he needed to learn. And he had been going back to church. He had already recommitted his life before he went down there. Um, what else? He had recommitted his life to Christ. He didn't get rebaptized, but he did get baptized when he was like, I don't know, 4 or 5, on his own. That was his choice. I never even spoke to him about it. He just asked the pastor to do it. He had been going up to the altar since he was very, very little. Um, so he gave his life back to Christ. He came back home, literally spent his last dime, and just said, Mom, I'm on the train. I'm like, what? So I went and picked him up, and he came home. So from March to June, I had my final moments with my son. My final moments with my son were so beautiful because in these moments, I got my my sweetheart back. I mean, he's such a sweetheart. And everybody tells me, adults, friends, how much of a sweetheart he is. He's always laughing. He's always making people laugh. He's always joking, playing around. He's always there for everybody. He had a beautiful, bright smile. He had this spirit that it just captivated people. He was so influential. And so he knows how much I would hate that he would make the music he made because me and his dad made the same music. And I didn't want that for him. I wanted him to make godly music or be a comedian or an actor because he was so talented. When I say that boy was talented, it was nothing he could not do. He could dance, he could draw. I mean, he could halfway sing too. He never had classes, but he could literally do everything. And he was on Snapchat a lot with his friends. When he would bring his friends over to record, he would do it when I wasn't home because I didn't want to hear the music. But after he passed away, I went on his Snapchat and I saw that he had pew pews. And this was as early as 16 years old. I really did not know that he was going in my room and finding my pew pew and going on Snapchat and making videos with it. Like scrolling through his Snapchat, there was, I don't know how many videos of him and his friends just playing with the pew pews like this to music, like doing these numbers here. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness. But anyways, so like I was saying, he was doing really good. He really wanted to please God. He was talking about marriage and having a family. He finally decided what he wanted to do with his life. He wanted to be a military vet. He was going to go to the Marine Corps. I thought that was the perfect job for him because he was a very talented fighter as well. It was self-taught. He taught himself how to fight. Like he was like always in the living room practicing kicking, spin kicks, jumping, and he ended up teaching his friends to fight. And so he was really good at that. And I thought, that's good because he liked weapons, which I knew because he had 2 katanas. I'm trying to think. He had 2 katanas, and other than the pew pews, I can't really remember if he favorited other weapons. But I know he really liked those katanas and those hand things. So I forget what they're called, but I think they're called nunchucks. He had nunchucks at some point that he would practice with, but I think he gave up on those. I told him I would take him to the Pew Pew safety class, and I never did. And to this day, I regret that I didn't. But as an adult, you have to learn to live on with regret because, like the serenity prayer, it's just certain things you can't change. So there's no point of looking backwards. Um, so our last couple of months, he was just doing so much for me. He started working for my company. He was the manager. He was doing such a great job. And I just kept telling him, I was like, I'm so proud of you. The day of his passing, I was supposed to say it twice and I didn't. And that's another regret I have. He was home alone that day. And I called him and I was like, our conversation on my way home, I was like, I'm on my way home. Do you know what you want to eat? I said, are you bored there by yourself? Because my other two children, they were with their father for the summer. And he was like, yeah, I'm bored. I have nothing to do. I'm here all day by myself. And his payday was the next day. He was waiting for me to pay him so that he could hang out with his friends. And he wanted to do something with his dad for Father's Day. So he just felt stuck in the house and bored. So he kept telling me, send me work to do. So I gave him work to do. He gave me the most wonderful Mother's Day. It was just, he was back to being Jamar. Jamar was funny and sweet and loving. And he fought so hard to repair our relationship once he was healthy again. And even though our relationship wasn't like that horrible, he went like one time not speaking to me for a whole month, but he was just having so many of those episodes. Like he would explode. And I didn't know, like I said, at that time it was bipolar disorder. So I just felt like I was thinking he was lazy. He didn't want to work. I just thought, he was being a teenager and he'll get over it. But before he passed, everything was wonderful. And I really thought I was going to have more of that. I thought I was going to see that for a longer period of time than 4 months. And the night that he passed away, we had 2 other deaths in the family. So we had a funeral, and then one weekend, and then we had another funeral another weekend, and then my son's funeral. So 3 days before he died, his 2 cousins passed away. And one of them was my cousin too. So we had those 2 people pass away. And I was on the phone with my cousin telling her, like, I know how this has to hurt really bad because I haven't, besides my grandma when I was a kid, I've never lost anybody super duper close to me. And I said that to her that night. And Jamar kept coming in my room. I kept going in the living room because he had my work phone. So I would have to go get the work phone from him because there was stuff in it that I needed to do my billing. And he was doing my travel at the time. So he was, coming in there making jokes, telling me about something that happened with his friends, making me laugh. And I was like, get back to work. Like, you keep coming in here. But I knew he was bored. But that also was like a regret of mine. I wish I would have just stopped working and just kiki with him. But when I went outside, I could tell that he was intoxicated. But I didn't see the can of Four Loko on the ground until the next day after everything was over with. But I was like, I know he didn't have anything to smoke because he didn't have any money. So I'm like, maybe he's drunk, but I didn't know if he was or not because I didn't have, proof of that. I didn't see him drinking anything. I just saw him smoking a Black & Mild. So he's smoking the Black & Mild. He's talking to me. I grab the phone. I come back. I give it to him. Again, he was just talking on the phone on FaceTime with his friends. Nothing out of the ordinary, just smiling. The very, very, very last conversation we had, I mean, this was literally the last thing we talked about. He came in the room and he said, Ma, when are you going to take me to the gun range? And I said, well, we can go tomorrow when we get paid. Because at the time I didn't have any money, so I couldn't take him, but I knew he wanted to go. And I was like, well, how are we going to, even though the range has, like you can rent pews to use, it's more expensive. And I was like, wait, so how are we going to go, without any pews? And he was like, with mine. And I was like, you really have one? Now, he had told me maybe a month or two prior to this that he had a pew, but I honestly thought he was joking around because he plays so much. You can never believe anything he's saying. He's always goofing around. So I was like, oh, you have one? He was like, yeah. I was like, okay. So we'll just use yours and we'll go. He was like, okay. So he's getting ready to walk out the room and he says, I love you, Ma. And I said, I love you too, baby. I was on speakerphone with my cousin Tia. And he said, I love you, Tia. And she said, I love you too, Jamar. He did not know that while he was telling Tia he loved her, this feeling came over me. And the feeling was so overwhelming. It was such a strong feeling. When he said, I love you, Ma, I felt this deep love and peace, like just overtake me. And I was like, while he was talking to Tia, I was like, why does it feel like that? Like, he's never told me I love you and it ever felt like that. And now looking back on it, I wish when I felt that way, I would have ran out there with him. Because what happens next is I'm talking to Tia. I hear this noise. Maybe he had only been out of my room no more than 5 minutes. But I hear boom and bang. And I was like, Jamar, what is that noise? Now, mind you, the police asked me about, did I hear a noise? And I said no, because I didn't remember. Tia had to literally remind me, you did hear a noise. Because you were like, Jamar, what are you doing? So I'm yelling from my room, Jamar, what are you doing? But I didn't come out right away. It wasn't until about 3 minutes after that I came out because I needed my phone. So I walked out. I walked out of my room and I saw Jamar laying on the floor. And there was a gun in between his legs. At first, I didn't even notice the gun. I just saw him laying on the floor and I thought he was playing. And I was like, Jamar, get up. Why are you on the floor? And as I got closer, that's when I saw his body. And he was laying in a puddle of blood. And he was laying in a puddle of blood. And all I could say is, oh my God, Jamar. Oh my God, Jamar. Oh my God. And I tried to pull him over. So I know I moved the gun from in between his legs. And I tried to grab his arm and I tried to pull him. He was so heavy, I couldn't pull him. So with all my strength, I just pulled him over and I called the police. And the phone, I guess now when you call the police, it doesn't ring. So I grabbed his phone, but that's when I noticed he was still on FaceTime. So I asked his friends, I was like, what happened? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? I'm panicking. And I'm looking for an exit wound or entry wound because I'm like, there's a gun here. So, there's blood. I see guts coming out of his nose and guts on the floor. But at the time, I'm like, no, he's okay. I'm not accepting the fact that he's gone. Even though I really think at the time I realized he was, but I wasn't accepting it. So the police, they finally answered and they told me to perform CPR. My door was locked. So when the police got there, well, I think it was the fire department got there. They told me to run, unlock the door, and come back and perform CPR. So that's what I did. I came back and I performed CPR. Again, I had a little hope because I thought his chest had risen, and I still couldn't find the exit wound before, I started doing CPR, and I didn't see an entry either. But I saw all that blood, and I saw like the side of his head, it was like blood coming, but I couldn't tell where from. So I'm screaming, and I'm still on the phone with Tia, and she's like, oh my gosh, what happened? And so I told her to call his dad. Um, and I think I just told her to call his dad, I believe. But she called everybody because, we're family. She knows who I'm close to. So the police come in, and I could tell the police thought he was dead because the police was like, oh man. And I was like, no, like don't say oh man. And then the way he was giving him CPR, he put his hands like this and he just kind of, it was like he was, I don't know, like tapping him. And I got upset and I was like, can you really do CPR on him? This is not CPR. Like, do actual CPR. So he was like, get her out of here. And so I was in my night clothes and he was like, get her out of here. So I grabbed my phone, which happened to be my work phone. I grabbed the wrong phone because I was on my personal phone. But I left his phone beside him because I grabbed it off the computer. And he had my work phone in his hand. So that's why it was on the floor. And I had put my personal phone on the floor beside my work phone when I was calling the police and stuff. So I just grabbed the phone and I was like, okay, let me at least put on some pants. So I got some pants out of my dirty clothes basket. Excuse me. I grabbed some pants out of my dirty clothes basket and I went outside where they told me to go. And my neighbors came out, and one of my neighbors, she gave me water. The other one gave me a chair. And then her sister came, and they also gave me more water. And they let me use the restroom. The police probably were there because he died about 9:45. The police were probably there about, I found his body probably around now 9:50. The police were there by 10 o'clock. It was probably like, it's about like 2 in the morning, maybe 3 when they left. I feel like it was more like 2. When I went outside, the first thing I did is I said, Jesus, the blood of Jesus. I just kept calling on the Holy Spirit. I was like, Holy Spirit, help me, help me. Like, that's all I remember saying, Holy Spirit, help me. And then when, of course, they came outside and said, your son is gone, I was devastated. And I wouldn't accept it. And I asked them if I could see his body. And they wouldn't let me. Instead of throwing up, which is normal for people, I guess, it was coming out the other end. So I kept using my friend's, bathroom. They were taking his body while I was upstairs using the restroom. So she came to get me and I hurried up and I came down and I was like, can I see him? And they're like, they wouldn't even roll the window down. They just drove off. And as they're driving off, it felt like my whole world went down the road with him. It hurt so bad. There is nothing like having your first child. And I grew up with him, and everybody that knows me knows him. There's no me without him. He helped me so much. He babysat his brother and sister. If I wanted to go traveling, I was able to go out the country because he would take care of everything. He would feed them, help them with their homework, pick me up from the airport, drop me off. If I had an audition, he would read for me. He would make sure the kids had the house clean. He literally did everything for his mommy. And when they drove off, I lost it. I don't even know, like, if somebody had to pick me up off the ground, I think they probably made me sit on the chair. I just boo-hoo cried. My brother, he came from Plant City. I live in South Tampa. He came from Plant City to Tampa. He flew. It took him like 20 minutes. He said he did 120 the whole way. So he was there for me the entire time. And the police just kept asking about his mental health. And I kept telling him, I know my son. I know a lot of moms and parents like, oh, I love my son. I know him. He's a good kid. Mine actually was. He was a good person. Mind you, he made music that I did not agree with. But he did it because of what's popular, not because he was that person. And that's the influence that I hate that this rap culture has on our children. And the police left, and me and my brother, we were left to clean up the house. So we cleaned it up. And I personally have a hard time wanting to leave my apartment because I feel like that's the last place he was, so that's where I want to be. Um, I'm sorry. I'm trying not to go all over the place. Anyway, I had to break the news to his brother because he wanted to know if it was true. He heard about it, but he wasn't positive it was true. This was his big brother, his son's first child. And they used to play together at my house. And my son used to go to his mom's house and play. So, they grew up together. And I love this young man. And I telling him that was so hard. Hearing him cry like that, that was his best friend. The amount of crying, because everybody loved him. I mean, there were like 500 people at his funeral between the wake and the memorial. Between the wake and the memorial, there were so many people, and everybody had the exact same things to say. He was loving. He had a beautiful smile. He was always helping people. The same things I told you is the same thing in his obituaries. It's the same thing in the postings. It's the same thing in the conversation. It's very consistent. And as I'm listening to all these people talk about my son, everybody always told me since he was little I did a great job with him, but it made me realize that my son left a legacy at 21 years old. That made me so much more prouder. But the story don't end there. My son saved my life with his birth, but he also saved my life in his death. Because what happened after that, everybody swarmed me. I mean, swarmed me. It was just so overwhelming. I never want to ever bury anybody again. It was the most overwhelming experience. I mean, hundreds of calls. That night, people were at my door 4 o'clock in the morning. I got no sleep. I was stressed out. Then I had like a family situation where somebody said they got offended because they couldn't get ashes. And the ashes weren't even for them. And my son wasn't around them. And then they had the audacity to tell me they weren't there for my son, that they were there to support me. And I was like, I told them 3 times I didn't want to have the conversation. It gets worse, but I ended up just blocking them. People tell me all the time, like, oh, and when people pass away, that your family show their true colors. And that is what I got. The audacity of somebody to tell me when my firstborn child passes away, that they were offended because they didn't get ashes. Why is this about you? And what makes it so annoying for me is that we're Christians. My family, we're Christians. If this is the kind of Christ-like love you have in your heart for me as another believer, because we're supposed to treat other believers better. That's what the Bible says. We, especially our brothers and sisters in Christ, are supposed to treat them better. So I'm thinking to myself, if this is the kind of Christ-like love you have in your heart, I don't want it. I don't want your love. I don't want you near me. I don't want that in my life. And people who know me, they know I'm a loner. I go home, it's just me and my kids. Like, I'm very social when I'm out, but in public, like, I'm sorry, when in public, I'm, out, I'm social, but when I'm home, that's it. I don't want to talk on the phone, but my phone is always ringing because I have such a large support system. I have such a large family. I'm very family oriented. I have love, lots and lots of friends, like 20 plus friendships, 20 plus years, of friendships. Like, I only have maybe one new friend, and she's been my friend for like, I don't know, 6 years, since 2020 is 2026. That's my newest friend. But she's like a sister to me. So I ended up finding out that the police said that they asked me because I had my bullets, even though I had sold my pew-pews, I still had the bullets. So they asked me about it. So I found out that he told his father he didn't have bullets. But I'm not sure if that was a lie or if he got the bullets from somewhere else or if he got them from, from my stuff. I still don't know. After all this time, I don't know anything. The police haven't said anything. And the detective was the most horrible person. It was like she was evil. And I'm now trying to deal with not hating police because I've never had, well, I won't say never. I've had one good cop that I had reoccurring situations with from a past marriage when I was in an abusive marriage. He was a really good cop, and everybody loved him. Even on Facebook, they ranted about how good of a cop he was. Outside of him, every experience I've ever had with a police officer has always been horrible. They've always been evil and mean, and for no reason. But this lady was she was really evil. I would say the other people there probably just mean or nasty. She was just wicked. I mean, I've had guns drawn on me by police officers who claimed that I was speeding, like I was fleeing or eluding because I ran a stop sign. And they gave me a ticket. What was the ticket? Reckless driving because I ran a stop sign going 35 miles an hour. And they drew guns on me. It was the most insane thing I've ever seen. I was like, you're drawing guns on me because I ran a stop sign. It was dark, like literally. And I had looked down for a second, looked up, ran a stop sign. And it was so dark, even my lights, and I think at that car I had, my lights were kind of dim. So I didn't see the reflection of the stop sign. It was really dark out there. So I was like, I really can't believe that, they pulled guns on me, but that's a whole nother story. But this particular officer, even the ones who pulled guns on me didn't make me feel like she did. She got to my house. She didn't look my direction. She kept turning her head like this, like she never saw me. Even though she saw me. She wouldn't speak to me. She was rude and nasty to my brother because my brother was doing all the talking to the police when they were asking questions. And they had asked me, I guess, what they wanted to know. Um, I had a camera in my house. And at the time, they were brand new cameras. I just moved into this apartment. So I didn't have the little SD cards. And I didn't pay for I guess, I don't know if there's a 20, I don't even know, honestly. I had the Wise cameras. So basically, it just captures somebody when they're moving, and it didn't capture everything. So I don't know if I need to get new cameras, if they're not good cameras, but I don't know that they record all the time. Shortly after that, I did get the SD cards for them, but they still do that choppy thing. So all you could see on the cameras was me coming out right before I called the police and him coming in my room right before, you know, he passed away. Um, so when he passed away, I went to church that Sunday. So he died on a Tuesday. I went to church that Sunday. I was overwhelmed, and it was rumors going around that he pew-pewed himself on purpose. But I knew that he didn't, because he would have left a note. He wouldn't have been on FaceTime. He wouldn't have been smiling. He would have waited till I wasn't home, or at least, there would have been signs. There were no signs that that's what he was doing on purpose. Plus, because of the position of the gun, like, it was between his legs. So I'm like, yeah. Um, but he was super happy. And anyway, I went to church and I asked, and I was in the middle of like praise and worship. I was just saying, Lord, I need help. I know my son didn't off himself. Let me know, like, please tell me where my son's soul is. And when I say, before this happened, I had just came from 2819 church in Atlanta, maybe like 3 weeks before this happened, or a month before it happened. And the Lord had been speaking to me about certain things. And it came back up around at this time. So the Lord, first thing he said after I asked him, he said, trust me. Now that hit me deep, because I had been struggling with trust when it comes to my relationship with God. And this was a vision. I wasn't sleeping. I was at church. Okay. Um, Mind you, this was during praise and worship. Thank God it was during praise and worship, because I felt like if it wasn't, all my crying and stuff would have been like, what's wrong with you? And that's the last thing I wanted to deal with. So um, I'm in praise and worship. I say, I'm going to trust you. I see my son. Now my son is sitting. My son is sitting like this, which is how he sits. Like, he's sitting like this. He has a baby in his hand, and he's pointing to the baby like this. He has his locks in his hair, which is his preferred hairstyle, like his locks. So in my mind, I'm like thinking I'm going to see like an angel with white on and wings and bright lights. Heaven was beautiful, but he was sitting, and he pointed like this, and he was like, look at my baby, Ma. Is that it? Look at my baby, Ma, or Ma, look at my baby. Yeah. He was like, look at my baby, Ma. So he was like, Mom, look at my baby. And at that time, I wasn't positive that, that baby was his baby, because I hadn't really heard much about the girl. Everything kind of came at once. Like, oh, I got a girl pregnant. Oh, the baby passed away. So to me, I wasn't really unsure. I wasn't positive that I was going to be a grandmother, but we had talked about it. He told me, he was like, it's my baby. And I was like, okay. So that day in church, when I saw that, that's when I knew that that was my grandbaby. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really am a grandma. So next, I was crying, just boohoo crying. And I was like, I want to see more of my child. Like, I wasn't ready to not see him anymore. So the next thing I see when I ask the Lord to show me more is my son has the baby like this, and he's on one knee. And there's like a figure, like a Jesus, you know? Um, and that figure that's like Jesus is just standing there. And I'm thinking to myself, why is my son christening a baby if he's in heaven? It wasn't until after the funeral. We didn't have an actual funeral. We had a ceremony, but it was releasing of the ashes and releasing of balloons. But it wasn't until then that I realized why I saw that. So his baby mom told me he really wanted to christen the baby. He really wanted to do that. That was really on his heart. And I got to see it, which was like amazing. So, and also I kind of think he wanted to do that because he knew I did that with all my kids. And it also kind of made him, um, he knew it would make me proud of him. And he had been talking to the girl about, making sure they raised the baby in church and stuff like that. Um, Before my son passed away, he was making plans to hang out with his dad, and the next day with his brother and some friends. Um, so like I said, I knew that he planned to be here. Then what happened? I came home, and my youngest son, by this time, I had told both of my younger children that their brother passed away. My daughter is the middle child. I called them twins though, because they're a year apart. They're Irish twins, so you'll hear me say twins. When I told the twins, it was me, my two brothers, and their father. And we went in my bedroom, and my daughter was like, "This is getting weird." Like, so we finally took her in the room. We told her, I told her, and she was like, and she just bust out crying. Mind you, my daughter and my son, they're like my twins, like personality wise. So that's her best friend. She did not take it well at all, of course, to be expected. My youngest son, he stayed by my side. He didn't even go back to his dad's house. He literally wanted to stay. I felt guilty. I didn't want him to hear all that crying and endure all that pain. So many people coming over, constantly making me cry. Because the more and more people call you and they are crying, it's like reliving your nightmare. And then you wake up to phone calls and text messages. And I know people mean well because they want to check on you, but it's the last thing that I wanted. I did not want to wake up to constant calls and text messages about my son passing away. So now every day I wake up, it's like my brain is trained now. Your son is gone. Like that's how I wake up every morning. But I wake up and I tell him good morning, and then I kiss his obituary. But a few things happened since. So I went home and I just, kept preparing for the funeral. People kept coming over. I was on the phone with his father. I was outside on my porch. I have like a back porch, kind of like a patio. Anyway, my laundry room is inside this like room on the back porch. So in the room in the back porch is my washer and dryer. So I was washing clothes. And there was no wind blowing. And even if there is wind blowing, you probably wouldn't feel it. I was on the phone with my son's father, and he was outside of his house on his patio. His has screens, mine doesn't. And he was working out because that's where he keeps his workout stuff. So we're on the phone, and I'm like, yo, I forget, I'm talking to him about something. And he says, Jamar just blew a bunch of wind on me. And I'm like, you felt it too? It was so strange. Because what happened was we were both just standing outside, and all of a sudden I feel wind go like this. Whoosh. I mean, real hard, real quick. And I heard Jamar, and I turned around like that. And I'm looking around thinking I'm tripping. I'm like, I'm tripping. I really thought I was tripping. What make it crazier is that the funeral guy and Jamar's father had a conversation about your angels or people passing on and they visit you. And I'm like, that's not true. In my mind, this is what I'm thinking. But I'm listening to them talk about story after story after story. And I'm like, okay. So Jamar did that. And I was like, Jamar just spoke to me. And this is what I'm thinking. I'm not saying anything, but it happened so quick. His dad was like, Jamar just blew a bunch of wind on me. I was like, oh my God, that happened to you too? And he was like, yes, like I just heard him say Jamar, letting me know that was him. Like that tripped me out. So another thing happened after that. I woke up one morning, and this was when I finally got to be alone and people weren't, you know, loving me too much. I don't want to say suffocating, but again, I do appreciate all the love, the calls, the presence, the everything. Like, I mean, if it wasn't for my friends and family, I just, I don't know. Like, my friends helped me so much just to put things together for the repast, and they helped me make phone calls and just everything. Like, they were so great. But it was overwhelming. And so I was just happy to be alone. So I'm at home, I wake up, and I stand up, and it's about 9:30 in the morning by the time I get out of bed, because when I first wake up, I didn't get right out of bed. But I said, Jamar, I want to give you a big hug. Now, mind you, I didn't really think that he could feel this hug. And I didn't think that, I didn't think anything of it, honestly. I just was like, I want to give you a hug. It made me feel better. So I went like this, and I just squeezed real tight for like a long, long time, just real tight. So later that evening, I spoke to his dad, which is so crazy. I spoke to his father, and he was like, Jamar gave me a real long hug today. And I was like, for real? I was like, what time? About 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. I was like, wow, that's crazy. So I told his dad about what happened that morning. So after his father told me that he got this long hug from Jamar that morning, we were talking and we began to talk about like everything everybody has been telling us. So my son's life has been helping his friends get saved. So one of his friends didn't believe in God, now he does, and another one wants to get saved. So one of them told me he wanted to get saved, and I was telling him about my experiences. When I went to church that day and I saw that first vision, because I've seen a couple of visions since then, when I saw that first vision, I text a couple of people, that boy and like maybe four other people, maybe five. No, not four. It was probably five people total. Yeah. So I text them about my vision. Two of them responded saying that they saw Jamar in heaven too. One said that they saw him big bright smile because my son had a beautiful smile. So even in heaven, his smile is still radiant. It's amazing. So that made me feel good to know that your personality, that was a part of his personality, his beautiful smile. And so even as a baby, when he had no teeth, he had a beautiful smile. So it made me feel good to know that he still got to keep his beautiful smile in heaven. So they saw him. Oh, and also that was kind of the theme of everything I did. Like I tried to focus on his smile for his collage at the viewing of the body. But anyway, so what was I saying? Sorry, I get distracted. Um, his friend, when I sent that to him and to the other people, one of them said, okay, I saw Jamar in heaven with a baby and his smile was bright and he was an angel in heaven. The other one said, I saw him with a smile so bright and he was an angel in heaven, but without the baby. So I was like, okay, so this is confirmation I'm not crazy. So another time Jamar came to me, he said, I will help you. That's when I realized that he's now my angel. So now I have a guardian angel. There was another time I was at church and I was actually with his friend. She invited us to church. Um, and I said to the Lord, I said, can I see where my son lives? And as my body, well, not my body, but as my spirit is going through heaven, it's a vision, so, but something was, I could see myself, like my eyes shifting. So as I'm looking through heaven, I'm like, oh, this is nice. And I saw pink. And I'm like, why do I see pink when I got close to where he stayed? So we released purple and pink balloons because of his daughter. And so not until later I realized maybe that's why I saw the pink. But I started freaking out because I didn't see Jamar. I was like, oh my gosh, where's Jamar? I'm like, God, where's Jamar? God, like I'm literally saying, oh my gosh, where is my son? Like, and then all of a sudden I saw this really fast pushing me back out, and I went back into church. So while I'm at church, I see Jamar on my right side sitting next to me. I'm like, oh, thank God he was next to me. So maybe a week later, I leave church. I didn't tell anybody about this encounter, experience, vision. The girl who was sitting next to me, his friend, we were on the phone like a week later, and she was like, I don't want to sound crazy, but I really feel like Jamar was sitting on my left side. She was sitting on my right side. I was sitting on her left side. Jamar was sitting in between us. I never told her this. And I told her he was because da 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 da. So I told her the story. She was like, oh my gosh. I was like, yeah, he really was sitting right there. My son loves his people. I mean, loves everybody. He has such a big heart. He loves so many stories I could tell. I'm not going to get into, but my son loved people so heavy that I know for a fact that there's not one person he loves that he's not watching over. Like, if you call on his name, if he loves you, he's going to be there. But anyway, so I said all that to say, like, I promised my son that I was going to be happy because I know that that's what he wanted. And because, again, I had a great relationship with my son because he told me everything and he said I was his best friend all my life. And I used to tell him, no, well, all his life. I was like, no, I'm your mother, not your best friend. So I was like, I'm not your best friend, I'm your mother. And he didn't care. He's like, you're my best friend. But he told me everything, stuff I did not want to know. Lots of stuff I didn't want to know. And that helped me to plan his funeral, like everything. It helped me to understand what he would want. Anyway, what I learned from all this was even in death, God is going to give you the desires of your heart. When I made the choice that I was not going to be depressed, because one of my friends, my blood pressure went up. My blood pressure went up to 173 over 103. And my friend, she warned me because she lost her son and another baby. And I thought to myself, that's not going to be my story. This is going to be a testimony for me. And that's what it has been. After my pastor came to the viewing of the body, he prayed for me. I hadn't had a high blood pressure since. And I was managing it because I was taking blood pressure medicine. I was doing garlic and honey. I was drinking tea. So, I was managing it, but it was high all the time. So he prayed for me. No more problems after that. Um, what happened? So, let me think. Where was I? Sorry, I just drew a blank. um, oh, God gives us the desires of our hearts, right? So my son really wanted a baby. In heaven, he has his baby. So he got the desires of his heart. God knew I wanted my son to be in heaven. So I got the desire of my heart. No matter what happened in his life, I was like, God, I want my children to make it in heaven. And my son made it to heaven. So that made me so proud. My son made it into heaven. And even in his death, he's helping people still just from the way he lived his life.